videos.
Yeah. Anything else?
Not that I'm aware of.
Any further arguments on that?
Won't have any further.
Okay, well, I think the parties agreed that the foundational basis for her using that video was established in terms of, it's the type of information that experts in her field reasonably rely upon. And I don't know how you can really argue its trustworthiness. It's a video of him, so I mean, she can accept it for what it is. It's probably more trustworthy than a lot of hearsay information she got from other sources. So I think the foundational premise for using it was established. I do not, from the clearly understand and agree that the statements in question of counsel is not evidence, but it certainly, that does not prevent the seed being planted necessarily in the jury's mind that there may have been some improprieties going on in how these opinions were being developed. Also, there was challenges made that suggested that the raised toilet seat and wet dreams and some other things were just idiosyncratic behaviors of the defendant. That rich uncle that everybody, people hear about that is kind of out there in left field. So because of that, the court finds that the video is admissible to give the jury a better insight as to the type of information relied upon by the experts in this case. I will give an instruction. And I do not find there's really any prejudice to it. There's very little prejudice. If any, I don't know that there's any prejudice to it. It's his YouTube talking about why he thought some people were entering his apartment. And certainly I think it has a probative value on the validity of the foundational facts upon which the expert relied in forming an opinion. And I will certainly give the curative instruction that they can only consider it for that purpose and that purpose alone, and not for any other purpose, the same as I did yesterday. But I think certainly it's information that should be allowed to rebut the implications possibly. I mean, it's up to the jury whether or not they accept it one way or the other. And for them to be fully and fairly, completely evaluate the type of information she had available to her when she was forming her opinion. So, are we ready to call the next witness? She's here.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Bryson is here.
Is she going to be the next witness?
anticipating that Dr. Wood would be back on the stand while the videos play, or?
Well, asked her about that yesterday. Can she be back up here this morning?
She's supposed to be here at 8:30. I didn't step outside and see if she.
Can you see if Dr. Wood is out there?
And I need,
Dr. Wood apparently is not out there at the moment. Oh, I don't know if someone can attempt to contact her and see if she's nearby or what the situation is.
so. Yeah, we can go with Ison, and then.
You wanna check on Dr. Wood? Cause I mean, I assume
I can try.
the way things went yesterday, Dr. Ison may be on the stand for a while. And I don't know what Dr. Wood's schedule is, but we're thinking 5 or 10 minutes, get her in, get her out, and then we'll pick up Dr. Ison. If she's gonna be a little bit longer, we'll go ahead with Dr. Ison.
You know, I step on the hallway, just say.
Sure. Yeah, there could be traffic problems, it's such a beautiful day.
Yeah, but you did the security on that,
Okay,
so that would be okay. I need to, get the thumb drive.
I got it right here. Right here. And, since she comes, this will take about 5 minutes, to get her through that line and everything, get her up here, we'll start back up.
I know exactly what you're talking about, but we were listening. Hang on to that. You got, user ratings. Cost of that, that's a right?
This is what we have to look forward to next week. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Please. Good morning, members of the jury. Good morning. Yes, with this kind of weather, might as well just be here and do a lot of work, right? Not work being outside doing anything. Ben's ready to proceed with the...
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
You called Dr. Meredith to go back to stand.
All right.
You would raise your right hand if you sworn.
You solemnly swear to affirm and tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Or you want me to wait a little bit?
Good morning, Dr. Wood.
Good morning.
Yesterday, you testified, I believe you referenced that you had been supplied some YouTube videos that you reviewed as part of your evaluation in this case. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Was one of those YouTube videos entitled "Somebody Broke Into My Apartment"?
Yes,
And did you review that?
I did.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to play that YouTube video.
All right. You may.
Alright, so I just got back from Starbucks, I had run out of my truck because I wanted to test my truck out, I found what was making the rattling noise inside of the wheel, and I took off the hubcap earlier, and there's this metal piece in there that protects the axle bolt or something, so it had jiggled off or something, supposedly. So I took a wrench, and I beat it back on there so it was tight again, and I put the hubcap back on. And since then it hasn't been making any noise. But I went to Starbucks, and I got a Starbucks thing, and I come back to the apartment here. And then that's the thing, is these people just magically show up, and it's an art of deception, they're doing this for some reason, because it hasn't been the first time. So for some reason, my cousin Chris just happens to show up here while I'm outside. The off chance that I'm outside just when he decides to pull up. I'm looking at my truck, I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do to my truck, in the future. I want to black some stuff out on it. I want to change the running boards, black the running boards out. I'm going to get under it, repaint the underbody, put underbody coating on the underside of it. I need to redo the rocker panels and everything like that. And so I'm talking about all the stuff I want to do to my truck. And then Chris pulls up, my cousin Chris, and I had gone down to his place the other day, to see him. And so it's like, well, that's weird, that this guy just happens to show up here, and he said he had been out voting with some people someplace or something like that. So I don't know how he would have known that I went there, or anything like that. But anyway, that's coincidence. I'll just write that off as coincidence. So anyway, I started talking to Chris, and he asked me how it's going and everything like that. And I said, oh, it's going all right, there's just some strange things that have been happening. And then I talked to him about my truck and everything, and he asked questions about the truck, and I talked to him about, his life and how's it going, and how it feels to be out of the Marines and everything like that. But then when I started talking to him about, what had been going on, about this internet stuff, and how my parents, had me taken to a mental institution for looking for Taylor Swift. Because a long time ago, I had read some stuff on the internet, and it made me think that she was uptown. So I was like, I'll just go look uptown and see if she's up there, And I asked my mom to go with me, because I was like, I don't want to be bored just playing this game, So I'll have someone go with me, and they can help me, find this person, And so I asked my mom to go. Next thing I know, we're out front of CVS, and the police are pulling up. This guy comes out from ERS, the police pull up, and I'm being arrested and everything, And so I tell Chris about that whole story, And then he doesn't ask a single question. And if you knew this guy, he's my cousin, so I've known him since we were little, And so it's like, if you knew who Chris was, Chris would ask questions about what had been going on. He didn't ask a single question about the internet hacking, which is really strange for this person, If you knew this person, that's the thing, is he asks questions about everything else, because Chris is just a curious guy, But then when it came to the internet stuff, he didn't say one thing. He didn't ask one question, which is suspicious. And then I come back up to my apartment, and this is why I'm angry right now. I come back up to my apartment, and this is on my dad's property. My dad owns this property, but this is where I reside. This is where all my stuff is. My stuff's all right here. So this is my living quarters. This is where I live. This is where I reside. No one can come in here. The door is locked. There's nothing saying anyone can come in here. And so, anyway, I come in here, I come into my bathroom, and I notice in my bathroom that the toilet seat is up. The toilet seat is up on my toilet. And so, I have, really, really high, spatial awareness. I took a test at the community college in my area, and I can either find it if I have the results here still, or I can go to the community college and get the results, because I took a test there, a placement test, and I scored 99 percentile, on this test that they had for spatial awareness, and they said it was the second highest testing that they'd ever seen for that at that school, when 18,000 people go there per year, per semester. And so it's a really high score. And I haven't put my toilet seat up. I know for a fact that this toilet seat was down. I know for a fact that the toilet seat was down. I never put my toilet seat up because I don't like it messing up my toilet. If you stand up and you piss into your toilet, water splashes and the stuff goes everywhere, it makes a mess. So I always leave the seat down. I always sit down to pee or do anything. I never lift my toilet seat up. And yet this is what's happened. And then before, I've come in here and the door will be cracked like that. It's not all the way shut. It's not all the way open. I always leave it all the way open, or I leave it all the way shut. I never leave it cracked open. I never do that. And I know for a fact, that I didn't leave it that way. So somebody has been coming in here. And then like I said to my dad the other day, there's fingerprints on the sides of my laptop. There's fingerprints on the sides. I never open the lid that way. When I open the lid of my laptop, I always grab it here and open you know? And then if I carry it like this, you know, from the bottom. My fingers are never like that. I always carry it like this, but somebody did, because there's fingerprints, 4 fingerprints across the top of the lid like that. Then I open up, so that's suspicious, you know. I think that's suspicious that I see these fingerprints on there. Then I open the lid of my computer. You know, I type in my passwords and everything, because it's password protected. No one can be on this. This is my password stuff. I type in my passwords and everything, and that's the thing, it's like, I keep long passwords that no one can crack, you know, that I know of, and then I keep them in a file here. So someone would have to gone to the file, got my passwords, then got my computer, got on my computer, and then I see that there's been files that have been manipulated on my computer. One of the file names had been shortened probably by accident. They probably highlighted some of it and then deleted some of it, because there was like half of it was there now. And I didn't do it. I don't think that I did it, you know, because I don't do stuff like that. And if I did, I would have noticed. But then, so then there's these notes. That was in my notes, you know, the notes that I keep, my journals that I keep on my computer. It's labeled under journals. I keep these notes in there, you know, to keep track of all this stuff that's been happening to me. So I go into these entries, you know, and one of them's been modified. And then I try to find another journal that talks about my dad or something like that. Another entry, and the entry's gone. Like, I can't find a certain entry that I wrote one time when I was out in Colorado. It just happens to disappear, you know, like it's gone or got deleted or whatever. You know, it's like, why is somebody coming to my apartment and doing this stuff? You know, this is illegal. Why is somebody getting on my private property like that? Why is someone going to my bathroom? And that's the thing, is I know for a fact that I never lift the toilet seat. I never put the toilet seat up. I never do that. It's always down. I mean, yeah, okay, maybe once in a while, you know, if I've been drinking or something like that, I don't know, you know, maybe I'll lift it up then, you know, just because I don't know why. But I know for a fact, before I left here today, just to go to Starbucks, that was down. And the reason I know that is because I peed right before I left. And I sat down. I didn't ever do that. Somebody came in here and did that. And so it aggravates me to no end that these people are doing this stuff, you know. This is my private space. No one's allowed in here. You know, and that's the crazy thing, is they think that they can do this. And, oh wow, I don't even know where to begin with all this stuff. Because then I watch these videos, you know, on YouTube about, oh, you know, some, Julia Roberts person or something, some psychopath like breaks into her house and she's hiding in her closet because she's afraid of like this person that's doing this stuff. And it's like, look at these people. They're afraid and yet they expect me not to be. Like, look, they're coming in here, they're doing this stuff in my apartment, and then I'm not supposed to be scared? Like, oh, I'm just supposed to accept that this happens? This is insane. These people are insane. I want this to stop. This is ridiculous. And I'm tired of getting worked up, and I don't know why I have to be mean to people or call people names in order to get them to fuck off, you know? That's the only word I can use. Is like, look, I don't want you around anymore. I never did. Like, I didn't ever ask anybody into my apartment. I've never done that. I don't want them anywhere near here. And, dude, this is criminal. I mean, this whole thing is criminal, what these people are doing to me. And then they blow it off like it's just some game, and I'm just supposed to be okay with it, when they're not even okay with this stuff. It's stupid. You know, it's probably because, you know, it's Taylor Swift, you know, she wants to pretend like she's a dude, she's a transvestite or whatever. I don't care. Like, if that's what she wants to do, that's what I said earlier, you know. Put on a pair of pants then, or whatever you want to wear, you know, put on boy clothes. You know, get on the internet and tell everyone you're a fucking guy, man. Do that. You know, I don't care. Whatever you want to do. It's not my problem. Why are these people breaking into my apartment, you know, flipping the toilet seat up like there's some guy in here using it? Like, stop doing that. If you want to tell people about that, then go tell them, you know. Go publicize it yourself. What the fuck? Why are you doing this to me? It's so dumb. And that's the whole thing, is they keep pushing this stuff on me, like, oh, this gayness, or like transsexual stuff, and it's like, what the fuck, you know, none of this makes sense. none of this sticks to me, and they don't see that. Like, no, like, I am not that, if she's that, that's fine, but stop projecting your garbage onto me. Accept what you are. If you want to be a dude, if you want to leave the toilet seat up, then do that, If you want to be a dude and you want to leave the toilet seat up, then do that in your own fucking apartment. Dress like a man or whatever on your own fucking time. Go dress like a guy wherever you fucking go or whatever, And tell people that if you want to tell them that. But don't be doing this shit to me. This shit's fucking crazy. And it's like, okay, yeah, two, that's the thing, is there are these sexist people, I saw this thing the other day when I was going through Pekin, and it was like, silly boys, girls drive big trucks. And it was right after I bought my truck, so is that a coincidence? I don't know. These people just come up with these bumper stickers just to annoy me. Like I said, I think part of the community is doing this, so I wouldn't be surprised if someone went out, slapped this bumper sticker on their truck. They're trying to make me feel that way, But that's insane. These people are psychopaths, and they're insane. And you know what? Like, trucks aren't just for boys or girls, okay? Silly boys. Trucks are for girls. No, they're not. They're for everyone. Trucks are for everyone, retard. Okay? This is stupid. This is sexist, and it's wrong to be that way. And secondly, if you want to be a guy, that's fine. Okay? If you want to be a guy, you want to pretend to be a guy or whatever, then do that. But when you come into my apartment and do this shit, okay, for one, guys aren't criminals. All guys are not criminals, you feminist Nazi. And when you come in here and do this stuff, that just tells me you're a fucking criminal, that you believe guys are criminals, and that's wrong. Like, all guys aren't criminals, And I don't like you because of the way you portray men. You're sick. I don't want anything to do with people like that.
I move the video as evidence, and I'll have to supply a thumb drive with just that single video. That's all I have.
Chairman, jury, let me explain something to you very clearly. That thumb drive on that video that you just saw was introduced to give you insight and some understanding of the type of information relied upon by Dr. Wood to form her opinions. You can only consider it for that purpose as to whether or not it's the type of information that she, give it what weight you want to in terms of how she utilized it to form her opinions. You cannot independently look at that video and make any substantive decisions as to his mental state, Mr. Reinking's mental state, the truth of what he was talking about, or anything else. It is solely limited as to whether or not it was valid information, or whether or not it was valid information. Give it what weight you want in terms of Dr. Wood's use of it in forming the opinions that she did. All right? All right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to clarify that before we went any further.
Dr. Wood, the video that we just observed, that behavior is consistent with schizophrenia.
It can be, yes.
It can be?
Yes, that paranoia, that fast rate of speech, the inaccurate interpretations of things, yes.
Okay. So it's consistent with individuals just have schizophrenia. That's just normal behavior for a schizophrenia.
It can be, yes.
Okay. And I think we've established that most schizophrenics are not out committing mass murder, right?
Yes, I would agree.
Okay. And the behavior that we observed, it seemed, according to his own recount, the defendant was saying that those things made him angry.
Yes, he did say that.
Right. Okay. He didn't say in that video it made him afraid. Just said, I'm angry.
I think at one point you did say he was afraid. Maybe I'm misremembering, but...
Right. Well, maybe. He talked about, and do you recall when this video was shot?
I was told it was August or September of 2017.
Okay. And just so we're clear, it's not abnormal for an individual, just any person, to post videos of themselves direct to camera on YouTube or social media, right? That's a normal thing.
I understand a lot of people do that, yes.
And not all of them have schizophrenia.
No,
And not all of them go out and commit mass murder.
very few people do.
Right, okay. And so this video, you said you were told was shot between August and September of 2017?
Correct.
All right. And his chief concerns in the video appeared to be that the toilet seat was left up.
He was concerned that someone had clearly been in his apartment, which was evidenced by the toilet seat being left up, the fingerprints on the laptop.
And a
And the door.
password folder being moved.
I don't believe that was mentioned. I think it was the fingerprints on the laptop.
He mentioned the folder.
I don't recall that in
Okay.
that video we just watched.
When you spoke to him in May of 2018, the concerns that he told you that continued at that time were toilet seat, password folder, things like that.
Yeah, at that night, there was a smell in the apartment, and that was when he mentioned the password folder or some document from his computer, yes.
Right, so the same kinds of concerns.
Similar concerns,
All
yes.
right, it's not an escalation of concerns, the same kinds of concerns.
They were similar concerns, correct.
He also, and there was a point in the video where he says, I never leave the toilet seat up, and there was a long pause. He says, well, unless I've been drinking. When you talked to him, there was a concern that he had an alcohol abuse disorder, right?
Yes, he has a history of drinking heavily.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you discuss with him whether or not he was drinking on the night of April 22nd, 2018?
I believe I did, yes.
Okay, and did you clearly verify that he had not been drinking?
I mean, by asking him, yes.
So, but you didn't review any records which may have confirmed or I guess either way that he wasn't drinking that night?
To my knowledge, there was no record of that. There was no testing that was completed.
Well, there was testimony in this trial that there was a blood draw taken the day after he was arrested.
That was never provided to me.
Well, it was provided at the very least in the testimony within this trial.
Correct.
Okay, so you didn't go and verify to look at the blood draw to see if maybe he had been drinking.
I did not know there was one.
There was also records that you reviewed that showed that he had elevated liver enzymes.
Correct, that was mentioned in his records.
Okay, and elevated liver enzymes could be consistent with somebody who has been drinking alcohol.
It could be.
Okay, so he had to be treated for that, right?
I don't know.
That was within your report. Those are the records that you said you reviewed.
Yes, that was mentioned in the report,
And
yes.
you noted it in your report that he had to be treated for elevated liver enzymes.
I don't know what the treatment for that is.
Well, okay, so the point is, he told you that he had a history of drinking heavily, right?
Correct.
He told you reviewed video which he's clearly showing that he drinks heavily, right? Such that he's leaving the toilet seat up and things like that. And then he received treatment which could be consistent with someone who has alcohol, who has been drinking heavily, and you didn't go and try to review or confirm one way or another whether or not he was actually drunk on the night of April 22nd, 2018.
I do try to confirm those things by requesting information from a variety of sources, which I would assume if that was accessible to either the defense or the prosecution, it would have been provided to me.
But as you sit on the witness stand here today, you cannot tell this jury one way or the other whether for sure Travis Reinking was drunk or had been drinking on the night of April 22nd, 2018.
I cannot verify that, no.
He also mentioned that he had some issues with being considered gay or transsexual.
He did talk about that in the video, yes.
That was something that bothered him, the fact that he might be considered gay or transsexual.
Yeah, it sounded as though other people might imply that, and that was upsetting to him.
And in fact, one of the things that he was initially, when he presented after being arrested at the sheriff's office, one of the things they discussed with him was whether or not he had a sexual sadism disorder, an abolitionistic disorder, and transvestic disorder. They called those the rule out diagnoses.
You're talking about the jail records here in Davidson County?
Yes.
Yes, they did mention them.
So there was some concern by someone who, that he may have a psychological disorders associated with being a transsexual, being an exhibitionist, and having sexual sadism.
Yes, that was a concern, but my opinion is that was a misinterpretation of prior events.
Okay, but what is sexual sadism?
Usually when we talk about sexual sadism, masochism, it's sexual pleasure by inflicting or experiencing pain.
Inflicting pain on others.
Yes.
Okay, and exhibitionistic disorder.
That was referring to sort of getting pleasure out of exposing oneself to other people.
So being naked in front of other people.
Correct.
Okay, and transvestic disorder.
I'm not quite familiar with that term. I assume that's referring to potentially he was grappling with being transgender, but I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, and it sounds like being considered transgender made him very angry or bothered.
Potentially. I think that what the concern was in his records, there were times where he was grappling with his sexuality. And I think that in that video, it talked about Taylor Swift potentially posing as a man, and he seemed to suggest that other people were suggesting that of him.
Okay, and just to put a complete button on this, you said sexual sadism disorder is one where you derive pleasure from causing pain to others.
Correct.
April 22nd, Travis Reinking killed 4 people, maimed 2 others, and shot and injured 2 others, right? He caused considerable pain on that day.
That is my understanding, yes.
All right. And exhibitionistic disorder, which you have testified, is someone who enjoys showing their nude body to others, right? On April 22nd, 2018, he exposed himself to others as he was causing significant pain to them. Is that right?
Correct. He was virtually naked at the time of the offense.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Dr. Wood, you said earlier, I think just on this question, that the state had opportunity to provide you with whatever they wanted to provide you with, and they did provide you with certain information. Isn't that correct?
They did, yes.
And you heard earlier, you heard like a question that at some point in this trial, there was evidence of a urine screen taken from Mr. Reinking shortly after his arrest. You recall that?
He did mention that, yes.
Okay. During the past 4 years, at any point in time, has the state ever provided you those test results that would indicate whether or not there was alcohol in the system on around April 22nd, 2018?
I have never seen those, no.
Anything else?
What's that? That's my question.
And Dr. Wood, you did receive records from the Davidson County Sheriff's Office, which included how he was treated.
Your Honor, that's not discreet.
Well,
The Davidson County Sheriff's
Hold on, let me finish the question. Don't answer it until we get the objection.
which would include certain records related to his medical treatment while he was in custody. Did you not?
We received his,
Hold on.
The Davidson County,
Your Honor, this is testimony.
Let's have one attorney at a time, and let that attorney finish, and then only need to say anything we want. I'm not gonna get into an argument.
the issue came up about a urine screen that was taken at the hearing. The question on redirect was, have you ever been provided that urine screen from the very hospital? No. Going to any other medical treatment is outside the scope of that redirect and improper.
And you made it so.
And Your Honor, I'm simply saying that she received records that included his mental.
He's testifying.
That's literally what you just did.
Wait, Mr. Brown, please let him finish now. I'll teach y'all how to debate later on, but right now I want to hear from one lawyer at a time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay? So, it is your turn, Mr. Gowdy.
I think it's fair for me to ask Dr. Wood. Actually, I think at this point, it's clear that what records she's received and had the opportunity to receive. So,
Thank you. Anything else?
No, sir.
I think you're allowed to go this time.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Get to the woods. All right. Call your name, please.
Your Honor, the defense will call Dr. Rena Eisen.
You would raise your hand if you want, please.
You solemnly swear affirm yourself to be faithful, true, and faithful to the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
I can record the witness in my statement.
Good morning, Dr. Eisen.
Good morning.
If you wouldn't mind, could you state your name and spell it for the court report?
Rena Eisen, Renaisen.
And Dr. Eisen, where are you employed?
I'm employed at Middle Tennessee Mental Health Institute.
And what is that?
It is a state ran psychiatric facility, public psychiatric facility.
And what do you do for them?
I'm a psychologist there.
And how long have you been in that position?
I've been there 6.5 years.
Okay. And what types of things do you do for, I guess they call it MTMHI for short. So what types of things do you do for them?
I do forensic evaluations that are ordered by the court. That's most of my work there. I also do a little bit of individual and group therapy.
Okay. And tell me a little bit about your educational background.
I have a doctorate in psychology from Xavier University.
Okay. And when did you receive that doctorate?
I received it in 2013.
Okay. And prior to working for MTMHI, what types of things did you do?
I worked in the prison system as a psychologist for 5 years. I also did outpatient therapy in a community mental health centers. That was the bulk of my work.
And do you hold any particular licensure in the state of Tennessee?
If you really touch, speak into the microphone.
Oh, yes, sir. Sorry. Yeah, I'm a licensed psychologist.
And do you hold any particular certifications in the state of Tennessee?
Yes, I'm certified as a forensic evaluator.
And you said that as part of your jobs at MTMHI, you do court-ordered mental health evaluations.
Yes.
Has that ever required you to testify before?
Yes.
About how many times would you say?
About 50 times.
Okay. And what courts have you been qualified in as an expert?
Davidson County Court, I think this court exactly. Shelby County, the court in Franklin County, the one in Murfreesboro, I forget what county that is. That's all I can remember.
Your Honor, at this time, I would tender Dr. Eisen as an expert in forensic psychology.
Can't think of a mistake. Remember the jury, Dr. Eisen will be declared an expert in the field of forensic psychology, charge you on that later.
Dr. Eisen, I want to ask you a little bit about NTMHI. And I would say the full name, but I get tongue-tied every time I try to say it fully. So, but for NTMHI, what type of facility is it? Is it a hospital? What's it?
Yeah, it's a psychiatric hospital. So people with mental illness come there for treatment and then also for forensic evaluations.
Okay. And do they have like an inpatient wing?
It's all inpatient.
It's all inpatient.
Yes.
All right. And so at some point in time, when someone comes in for you to conduct an evaluation, what types of things are you looking for when the court asks you, as in this case, to render an opinion about whether someone could appreciate wrongfulness or whether they suffer from a severe mental illness? What steps do you take?
Well, the first step is determine if they actually have a mental illness. So a lot of that is going to come from records, and maybe they had treatment records or different interactions with the police, whatever is available that has an indication that they might have a mental illness prior to the crime occurring. Sometimes that might involve talking to family members or close friends, things of that nature. After we establish that a person does have a mental illness, then we get into the details of the crime that occurred. So we ask them about what they were thinking, what happened. We do some psychological testing as well. I left that part out to kind of indicate what their thinking is like, if they have a mental illness, what their intelligence level is sometimes. And then we look at other available records to kind of figure out what happened at the time of the crime. So that might involve police reports, investigative reports, things of that nature.
All right. And do you look at videos sometimes if they're available?
Yes, if they're available.
And you talked about meeting with someone you're evaluating. When you do that at NTMHI, are they, during the evaluation, are they inpatient?
Yes. When they're court ordered for an evaluation, they come to us for 30 days, up to 30 days. So usually around the 30-day mark. But by the time the 30th day ends, we have to send them back. But they're with us. They stay with us the whole time, and our staff will keep an eye on them the whole time and write notes about what's going on with them while they were there 24 hours a day.
And was that the case with Mr. Reinking? During the evaluation, was he being held there inpatient?
Yes.
Likewise, with your engagement with Mr. Reinking, was that pursuant to a court order?
Yes.
So you've never been hired by either side to come in and give an opinion in this case, is that correct?
Correct.
So, do you recall when it was when you were asked to provide an opinion about Mr. Reinking?
I don't recall when I got the court order. I know he first arrived to our facility on July 12th, 2018.
Okay. And at that point in time, did you have any collateral source documents or information when you first got there?
Yes.
Okay, and what information did you have in reference to Mr. Reinking at that time?
I had affidavits, some records from the mental health cooperative, records from his mental health records from jail. I had the Metro Police Investigative Supplement Report. I believe at that time I also had the police reports that he had when he was in Illinois from contacts with the police. An arrest warrant from the District of Columbia when he was trespassing on White House grounds. His attorney at the time also provided me some notes about his meetings with Mr. Reinking. His attorney at the time was Jonathan Wing. I also, I believe, had some letters that Mr. Reinking had wrote to the court. Those were dated May 9th, 2018 and May 10th, 2018. Yeah, that's all I had at the time.
And with those things, in this instance, did you review those before you started interacting with Mr. Reinking, or is that something you would do during?
That's typically something I review right before, if I have time. So typically I would do that before.
All right. And so now, just to be clear, that's what you had initially, but at different points during your evaluation, did you receive additional information?
Yes.
And what was that additional information?
I received video surveillance of the shooting at the Waffle House. I also received, right before he left, I received journal entries from his personal journal prior to the shooting. And then recently I received more journal entries. Apparently there was a lack, something happened with communication, because I received an email during the evaluation. All of the journal entries our staff at the hospital did, but somehow I only got part of them. So those were resent to me, and I reviewed all of those recently within the last 3 weeks. And I also received YouTube videos that Mr. Reinking created prior to the shooting. I received those earlier this week.
And in relation to the videos, did you receive some YouTube videos back at the time?
Yes.
And so do you remember approximately how many?
I believe there were 3.
Okay. And then as it related to the ones you said you just recently received, about how many were those?
I did not count. There were a lot. It was over 20. I would say between 20 and 30.
Okay. So describe for the jury how these interactions with Mr. Reinking would go when you start meeting with him. Like, how are they set up logistically?
Logistically. So I met with him at least 2 times a week by myself. So me and him would sit in a room that we have on the unit and talk mostly about what happened around the time of the crime and some about his history. We also once a week meet with him as a group. All of our clinical staff meet with him as a treatment team. So that's in a bigger conference room. We all sit down. So that includes me, the psychiatrist that we had at the time. One nurse always sits in, his social worker, and our treatment team coordinator. So we would do that once a week as well and talk about his treatment while he was there, his treatment goals, and any concerns that he had.
The meetings that you had with Mr. Reinking, where it was just you and Mr. Reinking, how many of those were there?
I know I met with him at least 2 times a week. So that would be at least 8, but I'm not sure how many exactly.
Okay. And how long would those meetings typically last?
With him, it would typically last at least 45 minutes. Some of them were more than that. Some of them were an hour, hour and a half.
Okay. And the meetings that you said with the team, the treatment team, how many of those do you recall happened?
We are required to do it once a week, so that would be 4.
Okay. So, did did you come to a point after conducting those meetings and reviewing all that information where you formed an opinion as to whether or not Mr. Reinking suffers from a severe mental illness?
Yes,
What was that opinion?
that he suffered from schizophrenia.
Okay. And what was that opinion based upon?
So that was based upon his presentation while he was there, his behavior while he was with us, also reviewing his records as well. So he had multiple symptoms of schizophrenia, more than what's required to meet the diagnosis. He had delusions, so that means that he believed things that weren't actually true. He had hallucinations, so he was hearing and seeing things that weren't really there. He also had some disorganized thoughts, so his thoughts were scattered or confused, not really focused. There was some odd behavior. He also had what we call inappropriate affect, which is when the facial expression does not match what a person's talking about. He also had some unpredictable agitation, and he believed that he was getting special messages from random things in the environment. So things like TV shows that he was seeing, movies, videos he watched online, certain words people were saying around him, certain street signs he saw when he was in the community. If a certain car passed by him, he would see these random things and think that it had special significance just for him or special meanings just for him.
Now, do you recall specifically going back, and let's break this down and go back to the delusions.
Mm-hmm.
What were the delusions?
He had many delusions, quite a few, and there was a progression that we could see over time, starting in 2015. There was a lot of detail in that from his journal entries and his YouTube videos. In 2015, he was reporting in his YouTube videos about having alien encounters. That is the delusion that was very consistent up until it continued while he was with us, that he was communicating with aliens, that he was helping them with the war they were fighting with another alien species. He also started believing in 2015 that Taylor Swift was stalking him. He thought she was his girlfriend, leaving him hidden messages, leaving him clues about where to find him. He believed that some of these messages were her trying to convince him that he was homosexual and that he was a woman. He would collect these different clues that he thought she was leaving and try to find her in various places in the community. One of those times that he did that, he asked his parents for help. And so his parents were driving him around town looking for Taylor Swift, and they eventually contacted the authorities and got help in getting him psychiatrically hospitalized. So he was admitted to a psychiatric hospital in 2016. Those records indicate that he had delusions while he was there. In 2017, on June 16th, a police report shows that he showed up at work and was wearing a pink dress and holding a rifle. He yelled obscenities at his coworkers and then left. Later that day, the police were called again because he showed up at a public pool wearing a pink dress and took it off in the pool wearing only his underwear. And he argued with the lifeguards and yelled at them that he was a man and showed them his genitals. His delusions, 2 days later, he reported in his journal that someone broke into his apartment. That was the first mention that I saw of him, saying that he felt like he was in danger, that someone was breaking in. He said that when they did break in, he was drugged and sexually assaulted. And he reported the belief that the whole community was involved in this. In July 2017, he was arrested on White House grounds, and he told the security guard he wanted to talk to the president. The next month, he reported in a video that someone broke into his apartment again and went through his computer. In November 2017, he reported in his journal he's being followed online and in person by a large group of people. So he made his first mention of the Waffle House in a journal entry in November 26, 2017. He said a woman said something to him that was similar to what he had said out loud in his apartment by himself. In December 2017, he wrote some concerning things in his journals. He said that he'd still been communicating with aliens with telepathy, as well as multiple famous women. He reported that the aliens told him he was special and would unite all of the species in the universe. And then he also reported that the government was making attempts to kill him. And so there was this progression of him feeling like he was in more danger. He said there were attempts made to kill him every day. He said they were poisoning him, trying to shoot at him, but the aliens were stopping it every time. And he reported concern that the aliens might not be able to stop them every time like they had been. In December 6, 2017, he said in his journal that a waitress at the Waffle House was in the Secret Service and was giving him clues about Taylor Swift. 2 days later, he reported that all of the people at the Waffle House were either in the CIA or the FBI, and that they poisoned his steak. On December 13th, 2017, he reported that a man at the Waffle House had a gun and wanted to shoot him, and then another one was the mayor. And then one of his last journal entries, he reported that someone broke into his apartment again, and that was in January 2018.
When someone with schizophrenia suffers these delusions, do they believe them wholeheartedly?
Yes.
And specifically, what's the definition of delusion?
Believing something that is not true against available evidence.
In the context of schizophrenia, is it something that even if a person's shown contrary proof, that they still wholeheartedly believe their delusion?
Yes.
And you made one statement about Mr. Reinking. You started out talking about some of his delusions, and you said it continued even when he was with us.
Yes.
So just to be clear, does that mean he was during his evaluations?
Yes.
Are these things that you witnessed yourself?
Yes.
Were they witnessed also by other individuals on the treatment team or at NTMHI?
Yes.
And at one point, was he ever witnessed by someone talking to the TV?
I don't recall
If you
that.
remember, if you would refresh your recollection, look in page 11 of your report. Block quote at the top.
Yes. Yes. Yes, one of our staff reported that he was talking to the TV and he changed his voice multiple times and seemed to be talking about the shooting as though he was someone else. And he was saying things like, "Why did you make me do it? And I didn't want to do it."
So, fair to say, these delusions progressed and were present even through your treatment of him, or evaluation of him rather, at NTMHI.
Yes.
So, and we'll come back to the delusions in a moment, but let's talk about hallucinations. You know, what indications or evidence were there of him suffering hallucinations?
There were multiple times while he was at our hospital that he would talk out loud in his bedroom when no one else was around, as if he was having conversations. And he told us at one point that he had conferences with the aliens about different things that needed to happen. That's the only one I can recall. That's the only thing I can recall while he was at our hospital.
All right, what about prior to, like looking at the information that you reviewed?
Yeah, prior to, he reported hearing the voice of aliens in his journals. He reported communicating with them, having conversations with them. He reported hearing the voice of different female celebrities. He reported seeing someone he referred to as his wife, that he believed he was married to some kind of supernatural being that was a shapeshifter, and so he reported seeing her at one point, and she looked like Maleficent. That's all I can recall.
Okay. And you mentioned disorganized thoughts. Were there any particular ones that stood out to you that you were able to either observe or review from the materials?
Yeah, when he was at MTMHI, when he was talking, he tended to kind of jump around and lose focus when he was talking from topic to topic. I can't remember any particular thought. It was pretty consistent that he communicated in that way.
Okay. So, and going back to the delusions, were you able to talk to Mr. Reinking about his actions on the evening of April 22nd, 2018?
Yes.
And based on what you reviewed, what was his thinking on that evening? What happened on that evening?
His thinking was that he was in danger. He believed he had been stalked and harassed, and multiple attempts were made to kill him. He believed that it was this unknown entity that was kind of out to get him. He thought he had been drugged, sexually assaulted, his apartment broken into multiple times, like I said, attempts on his life. So he believed that he was acting in self-defense.
And was there any event that happened earlier that evening that you recall him mentioning or writing about from what you reviewed that triggered those fears to escalate?
Yes. He reported that his apartment was broken into that day.
Okay. And what caused him to go when he did?
He reported that he got a message from God telling him to carry out the shooting.
And do you recall how he said he received the message?
He said it was just kind of a thought that was put into his head, like it was a direct kind of implant from God.
And you've been able to review the surveillance video from the Waffle House, is that correct?
Yes.
And you were able to note from that video that what he was wearing.
Yes.
Based on what information you have about that night for Mr. Reinking, was there any significance to him as to why he was dressed the way he was?
Yes, he said that God told him to wear that particular jacket, and he reported embarrassment of going out in public wearing it, but he said that's the direction that he got from God.
And you said something about Mr. Reinking, saying that he was acting in self-defense. Has he ever talked to you, did he ever talk to you about why he was there, about why he felt like he had to do what he did at the Waffle House?
He reported the belief that the people at the Waffle House were involved. He said in his journal entries that they were CIA and FBI agents, and that some of the staff poisoned his food multiple times.
Did he persist in his belief while you were talking to him that he was acting in self-defense?
Yes.
You said he wrote to the court, wrote some different letters at different times while he was in your care, correct?
No, not
Or
while
prior
he was
to.
in our care, prior to.
Prior to,
Yes.
sorry.
Mhm.
So, at some point, were you able to form an opinion as to whether or not Mr. Reinking could appreciate that his actions on the night of April 22nd, 2018 were wrong?
Yes, I did.
And what is that opinion?
That he did not believe they were wrong.
Why?
He believed his life was in danger and he was acting in self-defense. And he also believed that he got the command from God to do it.
Now, from watching the video and the information you reviewed, you're aware that Mr. Reinking, after he committed the acts at the Waffle House, fled.
Yes.
Does that in any way affect your opinion? The fact that he fled affect your opinion that he could not appreciate what he was doing was wrong?
It is not. It's definitely something I took into consideration, but I still came to the conclusion that I did.
And from Mr. Reinking's perspective, why run?
He reported the belief that the police were involved in the attacks against him. So it would make sense for him to run when he heard the sirens coming. I think prior to the shooting, his behavior indicates that he wasn't very concerned about the police coming or being arrested. There was not, it did not appear to be any plan as far as making a quick getaway. He didn't have any clothes on or shoes on. He didn't have any with him. After the shooting, he left his vehicle at the scene. And then he went home and showered is what he reported. So his behavior indicated that he wasn't concerned about them coming. He did report that he didn't believe they would care about the shooting. He didn't believe that they would respond. And that was based on his experience with the police before, when he had called the police multiple times to report that people were harassing him and stalking him, and they didn't do anything. So he reported the belief that he did not think they would be concerned about that as well.
questions.
Mr. Norman, do you wanna go for a little bit and then take a mid-morning break, or would you just like to take it a little early so you don't get interrupted? Cause it's 9:45, so either way you wanna go, we'll move.
Judge, I can do it either way, I can get started whenever and take a break.
All right, we'll go ahead and get
I
started.
will probably go past the mid-morning break, so.
Or,
I said I will go past the mid-morning break, I don't want to inconvenience anyone.
do y'all need a break at this point, any? All right, well, let's go until about 10 or so, if we can find a convenient place to stop.
And Judge, feel free to stop me if I keep talking past that time.
Oh, you know I will.
I know you will. I'm not worried about that part. Good morning, Dr. Eisen, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you.
Okay. I want to go back through a few things. Obviously, you work at MTMHI as a psychologist, and April 2018, how long had you been there?
3 years.
3 years, okay. And how many assessments like this one had you done before at that point?
I mean, I get 2 a week typically, so I don't know, probably at least 200.
Okay. And on the forensic evaluation team, who are the people that are involved?
So with the forensic evaluation, that was conducted by me and Dr. Kovach, the other psychologist there.
And that's Dr. Ed Kovach, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And how long had he been at NTMHI?
Over 20 years.
Okay, so kind of definitely your senior, is that right?
That is correct.
And he has actually since retired from NTMHI,
Yes,
but he had been there for a very long time, is that correct?
that is correct.
Okay. And is there also a social worker that's involved?
Yes,
And in this particular case, was it Richard Selikoff?
yes,
And that social worker, part of his responsibilities is to assist with gathering information and things like that.
correct.
Okay. And in this particular case, Mr. Selikoff, he's the one that reached out to the district attorney's office about the journals.
Correct.
And you've referenced journals a couple times during your testimony already. And so that was, I believe it was July 30th, 2018. He had called me the week before and he requested of our office whether or not we had located a journal.
Yes,
So that was not something that the district attorney's office had and provided to you and said, please review this. It was the other way around,
correct.
which that does not always happen, correct?
Not always, no.
And so he made a specific request for journal entries, and I contacted the investigators to see if we had anything. There was no written journal,
Mhm.
but there were some files on a hard drive that were labeled journals. And so those typed journals were provided to MTMHI,
Yes,
correct? And there were 73 individual files, correct?
I did not count.
And you, for whatever reason, there was some snafu at MTMHI, but you only received approximately 27 of those files initially.
Yes,
And you said that you did not receive those until right before Mr. Reinking was leaving, right?
yes, that's correct.
And Dr. Eisen, we met a few weeks ago, and you indicated that it was sometime after August 9th that you would have reviewed the 27 journal entries that you reviewed.
Yes,
Which again, I didn't send them until July 30th because I just got the request. And the 27 journal entries that you reviewed was probably, I don't know, 70 something pages of typed journal entries, but the total was closer to 300. Is that correct?
pages?
Yes.
It was a large stack.
Okay.
I would take your word on that.
So the total amount of information that was sent, that was requested by your office It was voluminous, correct?
Correct.
And there was a significant portion that you did not review prior to issuing your opinion in this case, correct?
The portion that I did not receive?
Well, it was sent.
Right, but
I'm not
I
sure
did
why
not
you
receive
didn't
it.
receive
I
it.
don't know why either. But yes, that portion I was not able to review because I did not have it.
Okay. So in making your opinion in this case, your October 15th, 2018 report, you're saying you did review the journal entries that you received from your office. And again,
Correct.
whatever that snafu was, but you were missing a large number of them.
Correct.
Okay. When you made your opinion October 15th, 2018, at that point you said that you had reviewed the video surveillance. Is that right?
Yes.
But when you actually met with Mr. Reinking initially, you had not reviewed the video surveillance, correct?
I do not know at what point I reviewed it. I know I didn't have it. It wasn't in the initial materials that I received.
So when did you receive the video surveillance?
I believe it was sometime during that first 30 days he was there. I believe the outpatient evaluator, Dr. Woods, I believe, sent it to me.
Okay, and so you're talking from July 12th to August 12th,
Yes,
sometime during then.
I believe so, yes.
But you don't know exactly when you received it.
No,
Do you know if you spoke to Mr. Reinking after you received it about the incident?
I don't recall.
So it's possible that you never spoke to Mr. Reinking about the incident after you reviewed the video surveillance.
Yeah, it's possible.
Okay. And the last time that you spoke with Mr. Reinking about the incident was on August 6th of 2018, correct?
I don't believe so. He had the second hospitalization on August 23rd, from August 23rd to October 15th. So I believe we spoke about it during then.
You spoke to Mr. Reinking about the shooting at the Waffle House.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, and if you did speak to him about it, you would have documented that in a report, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And your final report, you would document any time that you spoke with Mr. Reinking about this incident,
And the
correct?
final report, I'm not sure. It would definitely be in a progress note, though, if I talked to him about it.
Okay, and let's talk about that a little bit. So, a progress note.
Yes.
Explain what you mean by that.
Every time one of our staff, one of our clinical staff interviews him, we write a note that goes into his chart.
Okay, and so you do individual meetings with him, correct?
Correct. So sorry.
And so when you do an individual meeting, you write a progress note. It's an individual progress note of yours.
Yes.
And the other psychologists on the evaluation team, they would write an individual progress note when they meet with Mr. Reinking separately.
Correct.
And then explain that process of who's in charge of writing the final report. Is one of the psychologists chosen to be a lead?
It was collaborative. I believe Dr. Kovac wrote the history part, and then I wrote the rest.
Okay, so you're saying it was collaborative with Dr. Kovac,
Yes.
that you were not lead, nor was he lead.
Correct.
It was both of you.
Correct.
And this final report for October 15th, 2018, did you draft that report or did Dr. Kovac draft that report?
It was collaborative.
Okay, so you're saying that Dr. Kovacs was actively involved in creating this report?
Yes.
And so how did that work?
I honestly don't remember that long ago, which.
Well, I mean, is one person typing and the other person sitting next to you, telling you what to type? How does that work that you both write something together?
We both write parts and then combine them, and we both review it and make edits.
Okay, and so which parts of this report did Dr. Kovacs write?
You're talking about the second report?
October 15th, 2018, that's your final report with the opinion that you are here today testifying about. Correct?
I mean, I have two final reports.
You have
But
two
yes,
final reports.
I'm testifying about them both.
May we approach just very briefly?
Oh, remember the jury, was normally preempting me. I was about ready to take a break and she took my thunder away. But be that as it may, it is about that time when we're gonna do that, and I've got a little matter I want to address, with the attorneys and stuff anyway, so just, put your notebooks in your chair and, go and relax for a few minutes, please. Do not discuss anything about what's transpired in this courtroom. Let's keep it calm. We'll be back here in about 15 minutes. be seated for a minute. Dr. Rice, just out of an abundance of caution, I know that defense counsel was talking with you about this. My understanding, you gave 2 reports, one in August and one in October. And one of them primarily focused on competency and the other one on insanity. Or did they both?
They both focus on insanity.
Okay. During your testimony, although you got 2 reports, and I'm sure that some of the information you may have relied upon in forming your opinions, both as to competency and insanity were used, right? I mean, some information bled over to both opinions.
Right.
The important thing I want to reiterate, and I'm sure it's already been advised, it was reinforced to you this morning, is there is to be no reference to or consideration of competency in your testimony here today. So to the extent that either or both of these reports reference competency, you were to ignore your opinions as a competency or any of your working with Mr. Reinking as it related to competency training, whatever it may have been. Okay? Any information that is mutual to both, you can rely upon, but you only address it as it relates to the sanity issue.
Okay.
Just as far as this jury is concerned, there is no competency questions, all right?
Okay.
Is that?
Judge, if I may, so I
Sure.
can clarify that line of questioning that I was asking.
Okay.
May I ask Dr. Eisen
Yeah,
a question?
yeah.
Dr. Eisen, so I was asking you questions and I was referring to the October 15th, 2018 report.
Okay.
And I realized that as I was asking you those questions, you were considering 2 separate reports and Judge had already made a ruling about the prior report, which is why I stopped so we could clarify this. Did Dr. Kovach write any of the October 15th, 2018 report? Or were you referring to the August 9th, 2018 report?
I was referring to the August 9th.
Okay, then so you said the history, which my question, like I said, I was referring to the final report, which I considered to be October 15th, 2018, because that's the one that gives your opinion regarding insanity.
Okay.
And I was not referring to the August 9th. So Dr. Kovach did not write any of the October 15th, 2018.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay. And I will clarify that.
Clarify the date with the report.
Yes, I will refer to it as the October 15th, 2018 report only. And I will not be asking you questions about the August 9th, 2018 report. And if I were to, I would ask permission of the court, just so that we're all on the same page.
All right.
Judge, I want to she made a point that there is information in both reports about sanity. So if the state asks her a question that raises, where it requires her to answer from one report or the other, as long as it doesn't touch on competency, she should be allowed to answer that question. She shouldn't be given some instruction from the state, because the court has not ruled that one report can't come in and one can, and that's a misinterpretation.
I don't think the court's ruled that either report comes in.
Or just even be discussed. I mean, so I just want her to be, I don't want her to feel like she's overly prevented from relying on any information or finding that's referenced in either report, so long as it does not in any way reference competency.
I mean, the history that he gave as to both reports, I think can be referenced. There is in the August 9th report addresses both insanity defense, although I haven't read it in detail, and there's a section addressing competency. But yes, I mean, in terms of her ultimate conclusions or opinions as it relates to the issue of her own sanity, she would be allowed to consider the history of anything that she obtained, just as well as all the other historical information she got from other sources. But again, it's limited to its relation to the sanity issue, nothing to deal with competence.
Correct.
So I haven't read the details of the report, and I don't know if there's independent things that she considered only for the competency, and to the extent that that is so, it's not to be addressed. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes, sir.
And, we both all know that competency and sanity are two entirely different things, and some things that she considered would only be considered for competency purposes. That's what we got to avoid bleeding into her testimony that's being presented here today.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
But just, when the jury comes back, I will clarify that the October 15, 2018 report, that she wrote that, is not.
Right. That's fine. And we'll just pick back up right there. All right? Anything else at the moment? 10 minutes of real time, not my time.
Watch our left flank here, guys. We got guys behind us here. Where do you want us? We're just gonna split the back out. We're gonna go in front of him. Well, hey, Rand, yep, that's fine. We'll break it right here. I'll be with you guys. Hold it right here for us. Hey, get dressed up on line. Dress up the line. Hey. Are you good? I'm good. Okay, the fuck is going on? Yep. You got the anarchy mask. Shield down, folks. Yeah, shield down. I didn't count me off there and hit me in my face. Where at? Here, we're walking out the side now. There's a big pad on the building between the 24 and the 25. Right there, that wall. Alright, watch that now. See that? The goggle back there? Watch him. That's the area.
Break force 1
We're gonna start pushing, guys. Alright. Let's start pushing. Stay tight, alright?
Go ahead. We completed that assignment. We didn't see anyone in the area with any guns for 43. All the protesters had their tires slashed on 7th Avenue at 59.
Hey, watch these guys back here. They're picking up shit behind that tree. Forward at the half step. Move! Move! Back! 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 Move! Hey, slow down. Slow down. You guys are good. Move! Back! 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 Move! Dress it up. watch your back. Like, aren't you sick of seeing the same people die and nothing happens? Hey, you got a bunch of those girls. Oh, you go.
Something. The October 15th, 2018 report, that was written by you, correct?
Correct.
And there were previous reports where Dr. Kovach was more heavily involved, but this October 15th, 2018 report, this was done by you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you were describing the process of each evaluator, which you and Dr. Kovach are the only two psychologists that are meeting with Mr. Reinking, correct?
Correct.
And you do individual meetings and write an individual progress note. And then you referenced that there was also a team meeting. And I believe you said that there were 4 of those.
That would be my estimate, yes.
And how long do those team meetings last?
I mean, probably around 15 minutes.
Okay. So 15 minutes, there were approximately 4 of those. That would be an hour. Your individual meetings, you said those would be 45 minutes, maybe over an hour, and there were about 8 of those. So just kind of averaging out about 8 hours of those. So this is 9 hours total, correct?
Yeah, that would be a good estimate.
Okay. And during these sessions, you said that you were speaking to Mr. Reinking about what happened to get his input, correct?
Correct.
And you said that you had not reviewed the surveillance video during your first sessions with him, correct?
Correct.
And so your first sessions that you meet with him, July 12th, July 16th, July 18th, July 25th, July 30th, August 6th, you haven't reviewed the surveillance video.
I can't recall what date I reviewed it. I don't know.
Okay. And in your October 15th, 2018 report, you don't specifically describe the surveillance video. Can you describe, I guess, what was your review of that video? Because your report indicates that some of the video files would not play.
Yes.
So what were you able to watch and what were you not able to watch?
I'm not sure what I was not able to watch. I know there was a video that was from inside the Waffle House when the shooting occurred. That was the one that I watched.
Did you watch any of the video outside?
No, I did not.
Okay, so Dr. Eisen, you were provided with the surveillance video, which it had multiple cameras inside, multiple cameras outside, correct?
I don't know what the ones I could not watch. I don't know what was on there.
Okay, but you're saying you saw no video cameras outside. That's your testimony.
Correct.
So you would have only watched what happened inside.
Correct.
Dr. Eisen, you do realize what the facts of this case are?
Yes.
And you did not watch any of the outside video?
No, I do not believe so.
Okay. I do want to reference the journal entries and the little snafu that occurred, because there were very specific journal entries that you reviewed and there were specific entries that you did not review. Is that right?
Yes.
And we sent emails to clarify that all up in the last couple of weeks, correct?
Correct.
Which ultimately you reviewed basically everything from 2018. It was the 2017 that was really the issue.
Correct.
And so there was, I think, a time frame from, you reviewed from March 15th to May 17th, 2017. But you didn't review anything after May 17th, 2017. So everything from May 17th, 2017 to the end of 2017, you did not review initially, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. I have two emails, the initial email sent that has all of the journal entries from 2017, and then I have your and my email where we confirmed which ones you had.
Okay.
So if I can hand those to you so that you can verify that those are the emails, just so that we can make a record of which journal entries you reviewed prior to Mr. Reinking leaving NTMHI. Do you recognize those emails?
I do.
Your Honor, I would ask that those emails be introduced as an exhibit.
Objection.
But let me see the email, so I kind of have some idea of what we're talking about.
Dr. Eisen, I'm gonna ask that you be handed back the 2 emails that we were just discussing. Thank you. Dr. Eisen, if you can look at that first email that's dated July 30th of 2018, and if you compare it to the email that we had on January 20th, 2022, could you verify that you received the journal entries, the first one being dated, well, it's labeled, the file name is labeled 1/05/2017, but that's actually the date on that journal entry is 5/1/2017. And you received the 3/16/2017, 3/18, everything up until May 17th, 2017, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And everything after May 17th, 2017. So May 17th, May 20th, May 24th, 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, June 1st, everything through December 15th, 2017 that's listed in that first email, you did not review until just recently, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. And if I can have the emails marked for identification.
17.
Dr. Eisen, in completing the evaluation for any person, is it important that you have as much information about what happened as close in time to the crime itself? When you are trying to make a determination of someone's mental state, or I guess not really a determination, you're trying to have your opinion about their mental state at the time a crime occurred, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Your whole evaluation is evaluating someone's mental state at the time they committed a crime.
Correct.
It's not a year before, 2 years before, 3 years before. It's supposed to be at the moment that they commit that criminal act.
Correct.
And so in this case with Mr. Reinking, it's at the moment that he shoots and kills and almost kills multiple people. April 22nd, 2018 at 3:23 and 50 seconds a.m. That's the moment.
Correct.
Okay. So you would want to have as much information as you could from people that observed him at that time, right?
Right.
Now, the state did not provide you with witness statements, correct? You didn't receive any audio recordings of witness statements?
No.
Okay. And that's not something that was specifically requested?
No.
Now, have you been watching the trial testimony this week? Because as an expert witness, you absolutely would be allowed to.
No, I have not.
So you haven't seen any of the living victims testify?
No.
You haven't seen any of the witnesses testify?
No.
And you've never heard a statement from a single person that was there at the time of the shooting?
No, I have not.
And that was not something that you requested?
At the time of the evaluation, our office requested all discovery materials. So that's what we were given. We weren't given any witness statements.
Okay. Well, and that request is kind of a pro forma request. It's a form letter, goes out on every single one. Sometimes you receive significant documents, sometimes you don't. But in a quadruple homicide case, this is less than 3 months after it occurred. Your expectation would not be to receive the full discovery because it's not ready yet.
Correct.
Okay, so that's in that instance, if there were additional things that you needed, you can always make a request to our office, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you don't have any information from anyone that saw Mr. Reinking at the incident, during the incident, even though there were multiple people that were there. And you didn't have any information about anyone that saw him in the 34 hours in which he was evading the police, correct?
Correct.
And you don't have any information about anyone that saw him in the days before. Is that right?
That's right.
So the information that you're provided with, it's historical. It's not close in time to this event, correct?
Yes, some of it is, yes.
And so this particular evaluation, it is based on Mr. Reinking's self-reporting about what happened.
That's part of it, yes.
And you only observed the surveillance video from inside the Waffle House.
Correct.
So we have Mr. Reinking's statement and only the interior video. Which, do you remember that interior video?
Yes.
What do you remember from that?
I remember seeing him enter. I remember seeing flashes as if he was shooting outside before he entered. He entered in the green jacket and appeared to be shooting. Then I saw James Shaw come out from behind the door, and they had they physically fought, and then both ran out.
How much of the video did you watch?
All of it.
Okay, because the video keeps going and you see kind of the aftermath. Did you watch all of it?
Yes.
Okay. So you saw Kayla Shaw run over to where Tia and Akila were. You saw her slip and fall.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes, I remember that.
Okay, and so you saw the first responders that responded.
I don't recall.
You don't remember that?
I don't recall. I don't recall that part.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the testing that you referenced earlier. So again, you said that you were not lead in this case, correct? But you did write the October 15th, 2018 report, right?
We didn't have a lead.
Okay, so you guys are doing this together, you and Dr. Kovach. And there were a series of tests that you determined should be administered to Mr. Reinking during the evaluation process, correct?
Correct.
And there were 4 of them. What were those 4 tests?
I administered the Miller Forensic Assessment of Symptoms test. I attempted to administer the Structured Inventory of Malingered Symptomatology, the Spectra, and the Mini Mental State Examination, 2nd edition.
Okay, and you said that you administered one of those, is that correct?
Correct.
And that was the Miller Forensic Assessment Test.
Correct.
Could you explain what that test is?
It is a test designed to determine if someone is feigning mental health symptoms.
And so is that feigning the diagnosis, or is that just feigning the reporting to you?
Feigning the reporting to me.
Okay. So you're testing to see if what they're telling you is true, correct?
Yes.
And
Or
it's
if
a
what they're telling me
standardized
is not true, rather.
Right, whether or not it is or is not true, I guess. But you're testing to see if they're lying to you.
Excuse me? Yes, yes.
Okay. And you also referenced the structured inventory of Malinger symptomology test, correct?
Correct.
And what is that test?
It is the same type of test. It detects feigning of mental health symptoms.
Okay. And so those were two separate tests, but you only administered one of them, is that correct?
Correct.
And what was the reason for that?
He refused the other testing.
Okay. And you referenced two other tests, the Spectre Test. Can you
Yes.
describe what that is?
It is a test that is designed to determine mental health symptoms, kind of an overall symptom picture that would match a diagnosis.
And the fourth test,
Yes.
can you what was that test?
Mini mental state examination.
And what does that test for?
It determines if there's any cognitive deficits.
Okay. And were you able to administer either of those tests?
No,
And why was that?
he refused.
Okay. So when you have this protocol that you established to administer standardized tests to a patient, are those attempted every time you meet with him?
Not every time, no.
And would it be you attempting to administer them, Dr. Kovac, both of you? How does that work?
It would be both of us.
So both of you separately would attempt to administer them until they're administered?
Yes.
And so the first time you meet with them, if they don't take the test, does that indicate that they had refused it?
Yes. Wait, what?
So if you, the first time you meet with them,
Mhm.
you have 4 tests they're supposed to take. If they take all 4, obviously those tests are done, and that task is complete off your list of things to do. If they refuse to take them, the next time you see them, you would attempt all 4 of those again.
I typically don't try to administer testing the first time I see them, but yeah, if they refuse it one time, I would attempt multiple other times, yes.
And so the refusal, if they're refusing to take one test, do you still ask them about the other 3 tests?
I asked them to take psychological testing, period. I don't tell them what it's called. So if I ask them to, will you answer this list of questions for me that I have right here, and they refuse, then I don't attempt other ones that time. That makes sense. Or if I say, will you answer my, that list of questions, and they don't, then I consider that a refusal. If they do consent to any of them, then I continue to try for the other ones.
Okay, so the one time he consented to one test, you would have asked him to take another one, and because he's only ever taken one test, that means he would have refused.
Yes.
Okay. And those refusals of participating in the process, that would be fairly important for people to know, correct?
Correct.
I mean, this October 15th, 2018 report, this is a report that you are going to submit to the court.
Correct.
And it is submitted to the court and to the Davidson County District Attorney's Office, and it is for the purpose of determining how we assess the prosecution of any criminal offense. Correct?
Objection. The report is not for the state to get to determine how to assess the criminal offense. It's for the court to be informed.
We're right.
Dr. Eisen, the report that you're creating, you know that it is going to the court and it will be provided to the district attorney's office, correct? You know that we are reviewing it. The judge is reviewing it. The DA's office is reviewing it.
Yeah, I know that's a possibility, yes.
You know that's a possibility.
Yes.
So when you submit the report, I mean, it has the judge's name and the court on it. It was done pursuant to a court order.
Correct.
So you do know that you're returning it to Judge Fishburne, correct?
It does not get to the judge every time. The judge doesn't read it every time I do a report, but I know that's a possibility, yes.
Okay, so when you're writing it, are you writing it so that it would not go to the court? Do you change the way that you write it for that purpose?
No.
Okay, but I mean, it's important to document everything that's relevant to your assessment, correct?
I believe that it's important, and also everything, typically if someone's getting a report, they have access to the whole chart, so I don't, in my report, I put information that I think is important to the opinions that were formed, but I don't know if it has every single detail of what happened, because that's in the chart.
So you're saying that you don't document things in your final report because you're expecting the parties to review your entire chart?
I don't expect them to review it, but the information is there if they want it. Yes.
Dr. Eisen, it's a final report because it is supposed to summarize the assessment, correct?
Yes.
And so anything critical that happened during the assessment, you would want to document that in your final report.
Yes.
Because if it's hidden within thousands of pages of an entire record, it would be hard for someone to know that's a critical piece of information that should be evaluated and assessed, right?
It might be difficult, yes.
It might be difficult. So it sounds like you're not very confident that every critical piece of information is in your final report. Is that correct?
I don't know necessarily what you might consider critical.
Well, refusing to take tests, would that be critical, important piece of information?
Yeah, that's why I included it in the report.
Okay, and so you included all of the refusals in your October 15th, 2018 report.
I didn't include the dates, but I included that he refused it, yes.
Okay, so your report says that you gave the Miller Forensic Assessment of Symptoms test. He refused all other testing. Your report does not indicate that you attempted the testing multiple times and he refused the testing multiple times and then only took the one. That's not listed in your report.
No, it is not.
Okay. So let's talk about your report. You began July 12th, 2018, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You have reviewed your report prior to testifying today, is that right?
Excuse me?
You've reviewed your report prior to testifying today?
Yes.
Okay. And so the first time that you meet with Mr. Reinking is on July 12th of 2018.
Yes.
And he is giving you a report, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Reinking said to you that the employees at the Waffle House by his home, they would say things that were in his journal on his personal computer.
Yes.
And that is one thing that Mr. Reinking has said that has been consistent. Is that right?
Yes.
The issue with the employees at the Waffle House by his house is that they would say things that were on his journal on his personal computer.
Yes, that's what he told me.
He then told you that they, and you put in quotes, that's what he said, broke into his apartment and stole a binder with all of the passwords with the sites I went to.
Yes,
And that is one thing that Mr. Reinking has been consistent about, correct? That is something he has said before.
correct.
He said that in his handwritten journal that he provided to Dr. Wood. Correct?
I don't recall.
You don't recall that?
No.
Okay. Did you review the handwritten journal that he wrote while he was in custody and provided to Dr. Wood?
No, but I did review her report. I do not believe I reviewed the handwritten journal, but I believe that's why we asked for a copy of the journal.
So you did not review the handwritten journal that was dated May 21st of 2018?
I don't recall. I know I reviewed something that was handwritten. I don't recall the date.
Dr. Eisen, you either recall that you reviewed the handwritten journal or you do not. Are you saying you do not remember reviewing a handwritten journal that Travis Reinking wrote on May 21st, 2018?
If you showed it to me, I could tell you. I can't tell you right now. I don't remember.
So you prepared to testify today as an expert witness in a quadruple homicide trial, a quadruple attempted homicide trial, and you have no recollection as to whether or not you reviewed the 5/21/2018 handwritten journal.
I reviewed many journals with many dates. If you could show me it, I would be able to tell you.
Are you talking about the typed journals that you just received and just reviewed the last 3 weeks?
No, I'm referring to that and the journals I reviewed prior to making my decision. There were many journals with many dates. Yes.
Typed, correct?
There were some handwritten pages.
Okay, but you don't recall a May 21st, 2018, 21-page handwritten journal?
I don't recall the date, no.
Okay, so you would not know if that statement about they broke into his apartment and stole a binder with all the passwords of the sites that I went to, if that was consistent or not. You would not know if he wrote that in a handwritten journal, correct?
I don't recall at this moment, no.
Okay. He did tell you, when describing the harassment, that random things would be taken from his home to cause him inconvenience.
Yes.
That is what he reported to you.
Yes.
He also reported to you that he tried to take punitive action by repossessing a BMW.
Yes.
And he said that to you, punitive action.
Yes.
And Dr. Eisen, you would agree that when someone does something and says it's a punishment, that is an indicator that the person understands wrongfulness, correct?
And
right or wrong, discipline, if you're going to punish someone, they did something wrong, and so you're going to have a negative consequence to that.
yes, the general concept, it does indicate that he understands that.
Okay, so we agree that when you do something to punish, that is an indicator that the person understands wrongfulness. And what was that answer?
Yes.
Yes. Punitive equals wrongfulness, understanding of wrongfulness. Now, in your next session with Mr. Reinking, that would be July 16th of 2018, correct?
Yes.
And that is when you administered the Miller Forensic Assessment of Symptoms test. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So that second meeting, you administered the one test, he refused all the others.
Yes.
And in this meeting with him, which is only your second meeting, he is not explaining to you anything about a command from God, a number 3, anything of that nature. He reported to you that he believed that the CIA were using the feds to harass him so that they could bait him into shooting the victims of his current offenses. Correct?
Yes.
This is entirely inconsistent, a new story on your second meeting, correct?
It's new details. I wouldn't say it was entirely inconsistent, but it is new details that he gave me.
Dr. Eisen, the lack of a command from God, that would be inconsistent. If Mr. Reinking is saying he received a command from God, that is why he did this, there is no mention of a command from God at all from July 16, 2018.
No, he didn't repeat that day, no.
Okay, so it's inconsistent. He did not repeat it. He gave you a different story. Correct?
I would describe it more of a continuation of the story. I don't know if I would say it was a different story, but
Dr.
he
Eisen,
did
the
not say the same
CIA
detail.
baiting him versus a command from God, that's a continuation of the same story?
He could believe both things to be true, yes.
You're saying that he does not wholeheartedly believe a command from God because he also partially believes the CIA are baiting him.
No, he could believe that the CIA is baiting him and he got a command from God.
Dr. Eisen, he said that the CIA were using the feds to harass him so they could bait him into shooting the victims of his current offenses. That means Mr. Reinking would choose that, but he thinks that they would be tricking him into it. Correct?
Objection, not a question.
She threw correct at the end. Overruled.
I'm sorry, can you repeat it?
Dr. Eisen, his statement to you was the CIA were using the feds to bait him into shooting these victims: Joe Perez Jr., Torian Sonderland, Diebony Groves, Aquila De Silva. The CIA were using the feds to bait him. That means Mr. Reinking chose to kill them, and he's just saying they tricked him into it. Correct?
He's saying that they baited him. I don't know if he said that that's why he did it, exclusive of the command from God.
But he does not mention a command from God to you at all in that July 16th, 2018 meeting.
No, he did not.
Which, in that meeting, when he told you this new story that did not include a command from God, he actually said to you, "You seem upset." And you asked him why you would be upset, and he responded, "Because you believe me."
Yes.
So he told you a brand new story that did not include a command from God, and that seemed to upset you.
That was his perception that I was upset, yes.
Okay. And this did not come up on direct for whatever reason, but during your meetings with Mr. Reinking, he actually kind of developed some type of fondness with you. Is that right?
Yes.
And you've kind of, your interactions with him, he was always calm with you. Is that right?
Yes.
Quiet?
Yes.
Very soft-spoken with you?
He talked a lot, but he did not get loud. No.
Very soft-spoken.
Yes.
Very calm.
I wouldn't, not calm all the time, but he didn't get like aggressive with me, no.
Okay, I think when we met, you described him as just nice, like anybody else, ready to be released into society.
Yeah, he was nice and polite, yes.
Okay. But then again, he developed this kind of specific fondness for you, correct?
He believed that his wife was inhabiting my body, yes.
Okay.
I don't know if it was for me, but yeah.
So he compared you to someone that he referred to as his wife.
He didn't compare me. He thought his wife was in my body, yes.
So
and he called me Crystal.
Crystal.
Yes.
And then later he called you Celine.
Yes, his other wife, yes.
Because he had two wives, which Mr. Reinking kind of has some delusions of grandeur, but he's very important, correct?
Correct.
And so he thought Taylor Swift was stalking him and obsessed with him, which you acknowledge that is not an uncommon thought. There's more people than one would think that actually think that, right?
Yes, particularly in Nashville. That's correct.
But that he specifically thought that he had two wives and then kind of attached that to you.
Yes.
And in this particular meeting at the end, he actually told you, I think you're beautiful.
Yes.
And this was something that kind of continued throughout your meetings, is that right?
It stopped at some point, but it was across multiple meetings, yes.
Okay, and especially those initial meetings.
Correct.
Now, you did not reference any of that portion where he was comparing you to his wife and saying that you're beautiful. You didn't reference that in your report for that date, but you did mention it later.
Yeah, are you saying the final report or the progress note?
The October 15th, 2018 report in which you are referencing your July 16th, 2018 second session with him. You didn't reference anything about him saying that you're beautiful or referring to you as his wife.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Dr. Eisen, you did not put in your report that he told you that you were beautiful.
I believe I did.
Do you need a copy of your October 15th, 2018 report? Do you have one with you?
I'm sorry, the October 15th report. I have one with me. I believe I referenced it in an earlier report, but I might not have done it in the October one.
Okay. Moving on to your July 18th, 2018 report. You spoke to him about the incident, correct?
Correct.
And again, you said that you had not reviewed the surveillance video at that point, correct?
Correct.
And even then, you never reviewed the surveillance video from outside. Which, going through your reports, kind of starts out with him telling you, I woke up at 2 o'clock that morning.
Yes.
And he said, I realized I had to do something about the situation.
Correct.
I started thinking it through, and I knew something had to be done at that point.
Yes.
So Mr. Reinking wakes up. Mr. Reinking realizes he has to do something, and he makes a decision. Correct?
He realized he had to do something, and he said he asked for guidance from God. Yes.
Well, your report says that he explained, I get information in my mind.
Yes.
So he wakes up, he decides he has to do something, he makes a decision, and then he says, I get information in my mind. It's almost like getting information from when someone tells you something, but you don't hear it in your ears.
Correct.
It's not a voice.
Correct.
And that probably did not seem unusual to you.
Yes, it seemed unusual.
Well, I mean, did it seem inconsistent with his previous reporting? I would assume that it did not.
Which previous reporting?
Well, Dr. Eisen, he's written a handwritten journal while he's in jail.
Yes.
He's previously reported to another mental health provider, but the information that you have that's coming directly from him would have been your conversations with him, and if you reviewed that handwritten journal.
Yes.
So if that statement was completely inconsistent with something he said before, you would have documented that in this report, correct?
I know it was different than what he reported to the outpatient evaluator, yes.
And what was that?
That he heard Morgan Freeman's voice.
Okay, so you do know about the Morgan Freeman's voice.
Correct.
So that did seem unusual to you. That was inconsistent.
Yes, I believe that's why I questioned him about it.
So you know that his reporting of any message from God has been inconsistent. And what he's telling you right now is inconsistent, correct?
Yes.
And he actually told you that he had received messages from God prior to April 22nd, 2018.
Correct.
So he told you that he had received messages before in this July 18th, 2018 date.
Correct.
He goes on to tell you about what God told him. So he said that it's just he gets this message in his head, and he goes on to tell you what God told him to do.
Yes.
And he said that God told him that he was supposed to, you get your gun and go to the Waffle House tonight. He said you only have to shoot 3 people.
Correct.
And Mr. Reinking's response was, I don't know.
Yes.
This seems like a direct order.
Correct.
So that is not someone who is understanding a command from God, correct?
He was unsure, yes.
He's questioning, he's unsure. So he's weighing, is this right or wrong, correct?
Correct.
When asked how he received the message, because again, you know that he has previously reported it was a voice because it was Morgan Freeman's voice. So it has to be somewhat audible to identify it to Morgan Freeman. And he told you, it just came to my mind.
Yes.
He does not report that it is Morgan Freeman.
Correct.
He said, wear your jacket only.
Yes.
Mr. Reinking said, I'm guessing because of the way they were treating me. He expressed to you that he did not know why he would be doing this, that he was guessing.
Yeah, he did not know why he would wear just the jacket, yes.
So you're saying he was only guessing about just wearing the jacket, not what he was about to do?
Yes, he reported he did not know why God instructed him to wear just the jacket.
And he thinks it's because of the way they had been treating him that God would tell him that?
Yes.
Okay. And then God goes on apparently to say, he said, take 2 magazines with you.
Correct.
And he says, I put on my jacket, then I took my pants off, got my gun, and headed outside.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I think that's the first time that he has mentioned that he actually purposely undressed, correct?
Correct.
Now, Dr. Eisen, this command from God, it did not tell Mr. Reinking which firearm to take, correct? It just said take a gun.
Yes.
And you know that Mr. Reinking has multiple guns, correct?
Correct.
And so there was nothing specific about that.
No. He did not tell me anything about that, no.
And so Mr. Reinking would have chosen that weapon. That was his choice.
From the information I have, yes.
Yes. Then the next thing he says, which again, you included this in your report, he says, this is really weird because I feel like I'm giving a deposition to my wife.
Yes.
Because again, he has this fondness for you. And you reminded him that you were a psychologist and not his wife. And then he says that he sat in his truck for a little bit because I was like, I'm a little scared. Because it seemed like the right thing to do, but it was still nerve-wracking. So I asked God to show me a sign if this was the right thing to do. Which again, Dr. Eisen, you would agree that Mr. Reinking is weighing his decision.
Yes.
He is making a decision and he is weighing, is this right, is this wrong?
Yes.
And he even says this is still nerve-wracking, so I asked God to show me a sign that this was the right thing to do, because again, you've said he's very unsure. Maybe 10 minutes went by. A car pulled up with the hazard light flashing and he pops the trunk. He was looking for something. I could see it in my rear view mirror. He ends up getting a hat out of his car. And then he was walking by my trunk and I saw the number 3 on his hat and I was like, what are the chances of that? So he said, what are the chances?
Yes.
Like it was happenstance.
Yes.
Okay. And then you questioned him about the significance of the hat because he's saying that it held some significance somehow because he's unsure of why he's there and whether or not he should do this. And he responded and said it was just like a Chance the Rapper kind of thing.
Yes.
Now, are you familiar with Chance the Rapper?
I am.
And Chance the Rapper has a very specific fashion statement where he has a hat that has a large number 3 on the front of his hat that he regularly wears.
Yes.
Is that right?
That is right.
Now, this is very inconsistent, as this is the first time that Chance the Rapper has come up in this, correct?
It's the first time it came up, yes.
And so when he is explaining this to you, and again, this is your 3rd meeting, the 2nd meeting, no command from God whatsoever, and the 3rd meeting, he again has added something new that no one has ever heard before, and he has changed something that's pretty significant, correct?
He added something new, yes.
The meaning of the number 3 might be a fashion statement related to Chance the Rapper.
Yes.
Okay. He goes on to say he likes the number 3. It's a beautiful number. There's 3 of us. And he explained he was referring to me, Celine, and Crystal, or me, Celine, and you. Referring to you.
Correct.
So that would be me, Celine, like Celine, Crystal, and you. He's adding you to his group, correct?
No, it was him, Celine, and Crystal, who was me.
Okay.
Yes.
No God involved, correct?
Excuse me?
I said God's not one of the people involved, correct?
No, not in what he was saying then, no.
Okay. So you again correct him as to who he is, and he goes on and he does make a reference to that 3 also is significant because of the Holy Trinity, and Nikola Tesla liked the number 3, and he talks about the starburst. He goes on to say, I already knew these people up here, and you put in parentheses at the Waffle House, that's what he was referring to. Every time I came here, they're repeating everything I say in my private journal. They hacked in, they would cross-communicate and act just like they were talking about work.
Yes.
And that is something that's consistent, that the employees at the Waffle House said things from his journal.
Correct.
He said he also went to another Waffle House in the south where I'm pretty sure they put manure in my food.
Yes.
Not the Waffle House by his house. He's talking about another Waffle House.
Correct.
Now, did he specify if he's talking about the one in Caryville, Tennessee, or did you even ask?
I don't recall.
Okay, but it's definitely not the one that he's going to.
Correct.
So then he tells you, so I got out of my truck and I did what I was there to do. And he has told you that his message that he was very unsure about was to kill 3 people.
Correct.
And he's going to the Waffle House because the Waffle House employees have been repeating things from his journal, and he is supposed to kill 3.
Yes.
He then reported that he shot at the man with the number 3 hat. I think I missed it first, and then I had to fire again the second time. That one hit him, and he fell to the ground. Then I remember just feeling like I was going to throw up because I was like, this is something that God told me to do, but it seems evil. It seems foreboding. That was what he reported to you.
Yes.
Dr. Eisen, you would agree that the fact that he felt nauseous by his own actions indicates he understood the wrongfulness of them, correct?
No.
Feeling nauseous over what you've just done because it seems evil? You're saying that is not an indicator of wrongfulness.
It's an indicator, yeah, that he... Yes, it's an indicator that he did not like what he was doing, yes.
He did not like what he was doing.
Yeah.
He knew it was wrong. He said he was evil. What he is doing is evil. He understands that what he's doing is wrong, correct?
No, he believed that it wasn't wrong because of the command from God.
Dr. Eisen, these are Mr. Reinking's words that he said he remembered a feeling of he was going to throw up because despite, he says, because I was like, this is something God told me to do, but it seems evil. It seems foreboding. That is Mr. Reinking expressing his own feelings. He knows it's evil. He is expressing his understanding of wrongfulness, correct? Dr. Eisen.
Judge.
Give her a chance to answer. I think she was trying to formulate or absorb the entire question.
I believe it's similar to if someone in combat gets an order to kill people. They might not want to kill or like to kill. They might throw up. They might be disgusted by that. But because of the order and the mission, they might not believe what they're doing is wrong.
Dr. Eisen, what you just described was someone who believes what they're doing is wrong, but they do it anyway because they're ordered to do it. So they don't like it. They don't want to do it. They feel compelled to do it. They do it anyway, but they understand that it's wrong. That's why they're throwing up.
And now I'm describing someone that's conflicted.
Let me ask you a different question. The concept of understanding evil, that indicates that you are able to understand wrongfulness, correct?
Yes, the general concept of evil, yes.
You are weighing good and evil, correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Reinking's statement to you was that he believed what he was doing was evil, correct?
He said it seemed evil, I believe, yes.
It seemed to him to be evil.
Correct.
It seemed foreboding.
That's what he said.
And you haven't seen that video that shows him shooting Joe Perez.
No, I'm not.
You did not watch the video that shows Mr. Reinking shooting him. You don't know how many times he shot him, correct?
Correct.
So you don't know anything about what Mr. Reinking is describing to you about this mass murder. You don't know if that statement to you is correct or not, do you? Would it concern you?
Judge, again, she's starting to answer. She's asking
Let her
a
answer.
completely different question.
I'm sorry, I forgot what the question I was trying to answer was.
Dr. Eisen, you don't know if Mr. Reinking is even telling you the truth right here, correct?
Okay. He did not, no, I don't know how many times he shot him, no.
Okay.
I believe I had the affidavits describing the incidents, yeah.
Did you indicate in your report anywhere Joe Perez Jr. and what happened to him?
I had a summary of all the affidavits in my report.
Okay, but your October 15th, 2018 report doesn't mention Joe Perez Jr.
No, I don't. I never mention victims by names in my reports.
Okay. It doesn't mention that he was shot 4 times?
No.
Okay. Now, you know that Joe Perez Jr. was not a Waffle House employee, correct?
Correct.
So you know that Travis Reinking went to the Waffle House allegedly with a message from God that he was unsure of, and that message was to kill 3, actually, the message was to shoot 3 employees of the Waffle House.
Objection, wasn't approved.
Overruled.
I believe he said to shoot 3 people. I don't think he said employees.
Well, Dr. Eisen, we just went through it, that the whole reason he's going up there is because the Waffle House employees are saying things from his personal journal. Those are the employees.
Yes, he said that, and then also prior to the shooting, he reported that the customers and the employees were all involved, as well as everyone in the community.
Okay, but prior to the shooting,
Yes.
you didn't speak to him prior to the shooting.
No.
Okay, so where are you getting this information about Waffle House, the people? Where are you getting this additional information?
From his journal entries.
The typed journal entries,
Yes.
the ones that you just reviewed in the last 3 weeks.
Correct.
So that has nothing to do with the opinion that you are here to testify about. Because you did not have that information when you issued this opinion. You did not have that information when Mr. Reinking was telling you about this.
Judge, may we approach?
Come on. objection.
Dr. Eisen, again, I am trying to focus you just on the July 18th, 2018 session with Mr. Reinking, where Mr. Reinking is providing you information about this actual shooting.
Okay.
So on that date, he reported that he was going to the Waffle House because, and the message is, you are to get your gun, go to the Waffle House tonight, and he said you only have to shoot 3 people.
Yes.
And Mr. Reinking has said during this session that the people are the employees. The people up here at the Waffle House, they're repeating everything I say in my private journal. They hacked in, they would cross-communicate and act like they were just talking about work. That is the employees.
Yes, that's what he described during that session. Yes.
Mr. Reinking goes to the Waffle House and he shoots someone who doesn't work there first.
Correct.
So his very first act that he chooses is in complete contradiction to this alleged message from God, correct?
I don't think it's a contradiction because the message said 3 people. The message didn't say employees. But
he explained to you that he knew these people up here at the Waffle House. He doesn't ever tell you anything about God telling him to shoot customers.
correct.
Correct?
Yes.
In a previous writing, he references he was hoping there would be no customers. He's going there to shoot the employees. That was his alleged command, correct?
No, the command said 3 people.
3 people.
Yes.
But you just said that you understood it was 3 employees.
No, I did not say that. I said the command didn't mention customers. It also didn't mention employees. He had mentioned employees previously, but the command was not specific.
Okay,
From
so
what he
you're now
reported to me.
saying that the command is non-specific. He's just supposed to shoot 3 people.
Yeah, the command said 3 people.
Would you agree?
That's what he reported to me.
That the 3 people, it's just 3?
That's what he said, yes.
Okay. But again, Dr. Eisen, Mr. Reinking is saying that he's doing this because he's being hacked and harassed.
Correct.
Correct? And the harassment that's consistent is that people are causing him inconveniences and they're repeating things out of his journal. Correct?
Correct.
So he is going there for the purpose of punishing people that are causing him inconveniences and repeating things out of his journal.
He never told me he was punishing them.
He never told you he was punishing them.
Correct.
Okay. So you didn't consider what he wrote in his handwritten journal at all then?
I don't recall.
You don't recall the handwritten journal?
I don't recall the details of it now.
You don't recall that Mr. Reinking said that he was going to punish them and take something that they couldn't take back, their lives? You don't remember that?
Yes, I do remember that.
Okay, you do remember that?
Yes.
So you remember that he said he was going to punish them by taking something they couldn't take back, their lives.
Yes.
And that is something that Mr. Reinking said, and he said that before any reference to any message from God. That was his statement, his choice, correct?
That was his statement, yes.
So he is going up there to take lives. He has alleged that there are 3. After he kills Joe Perez Jr., which you don't see him take that 5th shot at Joe Perez Jr., as he's clearly already deceased on the ground, because again, you didn't watch the video. He says there are 2 guys outside, and the guy outside yelled something. Now this is on page 5 of 10 of your report. Can you say what Mr. Reinking said at that point?
Oh shit, that nigger's dead.
He then says, I step up to the sidewalk just to be linear with the guys that were running. I didn't want to shoot him in the head because it seemed too fast. I thought that maybe give him a chance to make things right with God. Dr. Eisen, you know that Mr. Reinking is describing to you when he killed Torian Sonderland, correct?
Correct.
But you didn't see the video of Torian Sonderland running for his life, did you?
No.
You will agree that someone who wants to give someone a chance to get right with God before they shoot them in the head, that person understands the nature of their conduct, correct?
Yes.
They understand they are firing a weapon, it is shooting bullets, that person is going to die.
Correct.
And Mr. Reinking's understanding of I am purposely not going to shoot this man in the head immediately, I'm gonna wait to do that one so that he might be able to ask God for salvation. That is definitely showing an understanding of the nature of his conduct, correct?
Correct.
It is also an understanding of the wrongfulness of his conduct, correct?
I don't believe so.
You don't believe that someone giving someone the chance to ask for salvation from their God is an understanding of what they are doing is right or wrong?
No.
You do not think that that is an indicator of understanding right from wrong, that you would give someone the chance to pray for salvation?
I think that that's an understanding of religious views of right from wrong in that instance, yes.
So you do agree that giving someone the chance to get right with God before they are murdered is an indicator the person understands wrongfulness, correct?
Yeah, the general concept, yes, that's correct.
Mr. Reinking's next statement is, then I went inside and there were 2 more in there. I figured they were the personnel who ran the place. And these people were the people who kept saying those things. Now, Dr. Eisen, Mr. Reinking's statements to you are that he's targeting the employees. Do you agree that that statement indicates that's what he was intending to do?
Yes.
He clarified that they were the individuals who were repeating things from his journal. Correct?
Correct.
Now, you saw the video from the inside of the Waffle House.
Yes.
You saw Mr. Reinking when he entered. He did not go left, did he?
I can't recall what direction he went in.
You've seen the video of him gunning down all of those people and you don't remember it?
I remember the video. That detail I do not remember, no.
Well, Dr. Eisen, if you go in this Waffle House, if you walk left, that's how you would get to the kitchen. That's how you would get to where the employees were. If you go right, that's where the bathrooms are. That's customer area only. Mr. Reinking shoots to the left. He doesn't walk that way. And you clearly see Aquila De Silva. You clearly see Shantia Wagner scrambling on the ground, trying to get away from him as he's shooting at them. There is no question they are not Waffle House employees. Everybody in that place had hit the deck, but they are scrambling away from him. And you saw him shooting at them, right?
Yes.
And then he turns right and he shoots at Sharita Henderson and Ebony Groves, two girls that are under a booth. They're not Waffle House employees. Now, Dr. Eisen, I realize that you haven't listened to anyone's statement and you haven't watched any of the testimony in this trial, but Sharita Henderson said that he looked her in the eye before he shot her.
Objection. Still testifying, no question.
Saying this, it's gonna be followed up with a question.
Dr. Eisen, you agree that Mr. Reinking went in there to shoot more than just 3 people, correct?
He for a fact shot more than 3 people, yes.
So you've seen that he goes in and he shoots way more than 3 people.
Yes.
His actions are not about any alleged command from God. Even if that were true, he is now making decisions on his own. He is doing what he wants to do, correct?
Yes, that was different than the command that he said he heard. Yes.
That is different than the command. And you saw that he did not stop. He shoots into the bathroom area. You saw James Shaw Jr. come flying out of there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, almost parallel. And you know that he was struck in the arm with a bullet. Mr. Reinking's actions in that Waffle House, you agree, were to keep going and to shoot more people. Correct, Dr. Eisen?
Yes, he did shoot more people.
And he had 60 more rounds. It was only James Shaw Jr. that stopped him that day, not Mr. Reinking. You agree with that, right?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw is the one that took the gun from him. He was headed to do more, correct?
I can't predict what he was going to do, but I do know that James Shaw Jr. stopped him, yes.
Mr. Reinking goes on to tell you about his interaction with Mr. Shaw. And he says that he ran out, he kept running. I took off running toward my apartment. I threw my jacket in the ditch because I didn't need it anymore. It was torn anyway. So I ended up running down the street. Correct?
Correct.
And the jacket was just there to hold his extra magazines, which now he doesn't have a gun. So he told you he didn't need that jacket anymore, correct?
Yes, that's what he told me.
It also just so happens to be the only identifiable piece of clothing he had on at the moment, correct?
Correct.
And then he like the next thing he tells you is that, again, we're back to God's alleged direction, that God told him to drive his truck to the Waffle House, leave it there, and walk back to his apartment. Did that strike you as odd, Dr. Eisen?
Yes.
Because I guess one would expect that Mr. Reinking might get back in his truck and leave the scene, correct?
Yes.
And obviously, what he's already described, this is not the original plan, because James Shaw Jr. was not in the plan. Correct?
Correct.
So the thing that makes him run on foot, again, he told you that God told him to do it that way, but you agree that's inconsistent, right?
No.
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 Now, he doesn't tell you originally when he gets the message that he is supposed to go to the Waffle House tonight, you only have to shoot 3 people. He doesn't tell you then that he's supposed to drive his truck, leave it there, and walk back to his apartment. He only tells you after he's describing the event and what happened, and then he says that was somehow connected to a message from God.
Correct.
Okay. And then he says that he ran to his apartment and he took a shower.
Yes.
Now, you would agree that Mr. Reinking, he disguised his appearance by not wearing any clothes, correct?
His appearance was different.
I mean, there's no description that's gonna go out on a bolo. There's no hoodie, jeans, hat, colored clothes. We're not getting any of that stuff. The only description is naked man.
Yes.
Okay. So he took an effort to conceal what would be detected about him. Correct?
I don't know.
If someone tries to disguise themselves, that would indicate that they understand that what they're about to do is wrong. You would agree with that?
Yes, that would be an indicator.
So if I put a mask on to go rob a bank, the fact that I put the mask on would indicate I knew that what I was about to do could get me caught, and I understood it was wrong.
Yes.
Okay. So he then reports to you that he heard sirens. And I was like, great. They never did anything when I called them before. That's when I put on some shoes and I thought, I gotta get out of here now, because now they're gonna come and try to convict me after it escalated to this. Mr. Reinking is expressing, I thought I gotta get out of here now because they're gonna come and try to convict me. Dr. Eisen, you would agree that that statement indicates that Mr. Reinking understood the wrongfulness of his actions, correct?
Yes, he understood the police would be after him after the fact, yes.
He absolutely understood the police would be after him for what he did.
Correct.
And then he goes on and says that he had a plan to go to Canada. And then says to you, that's what I should have done in the first place. So again, Dr. Eisen, he is planning to flee the United States of America to go to another country. You would indicate that you would agree that that indicates he understands the wrongfulness of what he's just done.
Yes.
He has to flee the jurisdiction because the police are after him for what he just did.
Correct.
And then he's saying that's what I should have done in the first place. He is expressing that he understands he did not have to do this. He had options. Correct?
He did say that that was an option, and he also said that they would continue to do the same thing in Canada if he went there. Yes.
That's what he says at that moment. He said, but it said online they would follow me there. That's what he says at that very moment. He said he left his apartment with a backpack full of stuff, including a handgun, a flashlight, and a bottle of water. He said he also put some silver in the backpack, saying, I had some silver in my house, some valuable metal. He then goes on to describe to you, I probably only got a mile from my house. I swam through this lake. I put mud on me and everything to try to avoid the smell for dogs. He said he crawled under a house and hid for about 3 days. Dr. Eisen, you would agree that someone that packs a go bag that includes a gun, that they understand they are going on the run from the police, correct?
Correct.
And his efforts that he's saying he swam through a lake, trying to put mud on him to avoid a canine dog from finding him, like a canine track. That he's indicating he understands the police are coming to arrest him for what he did.
Yes.
So he said he hid under the house for about 3 days. He describes it as being cold, like about 40 degrees. Then he reported he left that hiding spot after he heard the residents of the house talking, and one of them said, I think there's a dog down there in the crawl space. I think I should go check that out, maybe tomorrow. Mr. Reinking stated, so I thought it would be a good idea to leave there. Which again, Mr. Reinking is expressing his understanding that the police are after him for what he did, correct?
Yes.
He goes on and he says to you that he had a plan to go to a business where he previously worked and he was going to hotwire one of their trucks. You would agree that someone that is going to hotwire a truck is planning to steal it, correct?
Correct.
And he used that term hotwire, which indicates he understood he was going to steal it, correct?
Correct.
And he says so he could drive to Canada. He stated he was 3 to 4 miles away from the business when I just ran into one officer in the woods, and that's how I got caught. He understood he was caught. That is an indicator that he understands they are after him for what he did at the Waffle House, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, in between your 7/18 meeting with Mr. Reinking and your next meeting with Mr. Reinking on July 25th of 2018, he met with Dr. Kovach on July 23rd, 2018. Now, that was a separate meeting apart from you. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you were not present for that July 23rd, 2018 meeting with Dr. Kovach. Is that, I do want to clarify that if you could. And please.
You said July 23rd?
Yes, July 23rd. If you could just verify whether or not that was a individual session with just Dr. Kovach, or if that was a session that you would have been involved in.
I believe that was just Dr. Kovach.
Are you able to confirm that, Dr. Eisen?
Yeah, I have a note, a progress note from the same date. But from the way it's written, it appears that I met with him individually by myself.
Okay, and so you have an individual note on July 23rd, which I believe he refused the Spectre test again that day. But Dr. Kovach's meeting, again, totally separate meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, I am moving on to the July 25th meeting. It is approximately the same
Pretty
length.
close. And I suspect that you would go well over 12 o'clock noon on question about July 25th, if I'm not looking at the narrative, it's an indication of.
Yes, I have 3 more.
we'll go ahead and recess the lunch, let them get settled in for a little bit. We will recess the lunch at this time, and we'll be back in here about an hour or so. Please keep in mind, you cannot discuss anything about what transpired in the courtroom, keep the dogs themselves. Back in here. At the point in time, you can step down back there. You get back. Just go warm, so. Whenever the testimony of Dr. Eisen concludes, she has referenced other materials that she has reviewed, but she's also at length been questioned on his direct statements, which are substantive evidence. I assume I should give both a curative instruction as to how she treats those other materials that are outside sources, along with how she treats his statements to her, which are to be treated differently. Okay? Sort of like we discussed late yesterday afternoon. So if someone will just please remind me to do that, I mean, I hope I will remember to give the curative instruction and differentiate it between that and his personal statements. But if I don't, somebody please do before we call the next witness. All right? Court recess.